We'll call the meeting of the Executive Committee of the Dunn County Board of Supervisors to order on this Wednesday, March 8th, 2023 at 3:30 p.m. in room 60 of the Dunn County Government Center. The next order of business is call of the roll. Would County Manager Corpola accommodate me, please?
Supervisor Hedlund.
Here.
Supervisor Kaufman.
Here.
Supervisor King.
Here.
Supervisor King.
Here.
Morehouse.
Here.
Supervisor Rogers. Is
Yes.
there. Oops, sorry, Supervisor Quinn.
Here.
And Supervisor Calabrese.
Here. And Chairman.
And there comes Supervisor Zons. 2 seconds.
Chairman McCullough also there.
Oh, and yep, and Chairman McCullough.
From sunny Oklahoma. Actually, it's pouring down rain.
All right, thank you for that.
Supervisor Zons, we acknowledged your presence because as you were logging in, are you there?
I am here.
There you go.
Geez.
So everyone is present and accounted for.
Welcome you all in person and Zooming. Next order of business is approval of the minutes, February 8th, 2023 meeting and February 15th, 2023 meeting. I would entertain a motion to approve. What's the board's pleasure?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Of one set or all?
How about both?
Is there a second? We got a motion and a second to improve the meetings. Any discussion, correction? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Supervisor, I mean, not supervisor, but County Manager Corporal, do we have any public comments?
No.
Okay, no public comments, and then we'll move right into the report that'll keep you at the edge of your seat, the county manager's report.
That it will. Good afternoon. So first item is review of the draft agenda for next week's county board meeting. Relatively straightforward, I believe. Just check and see if there's anything. Department reports will be Register of Deeds and the Criminal Justice Collaborating Division. We have the annual budget adjustments and carry forwards from 2022. And then we have additional budget adjustments from 3 departments, Department of Human Services. I don't even have my own revised. Oh, sorry, I'm looking around thinking. Department of Human Services, Health Department, and there has been an addition of land information to that. Nick is bringing forward a resolution approving the 2022 opioid settlements. And there's a lot of information in the packet about those. And then at Chair McCullough and Supervisor Zon's request, there is an ordinance amendment, first reading, to make permanent the ability for county supervisors to appear remotely, virtually, for all meetings, because there was a limit on the number of meetings. And then also to formally designate community resources and tourism as the broadband and communication oversight group. And then resolution proclaiming April as National County Government Month. And later on, there's a resolution appointing recognizing a week in April as Work Zone Safety Month. Those are regular things that come to the county board. A zoning amendment, zoning ordinance amendment, and then a request on the part of the community administration to approve participation in another investment tool company fund process called Whisk. Any questions about that? Additions or things we should add? All right, next, last week, 7 of us attended the Wisconsin Counties Association Legislative Exchange. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. Supervisor Steen, Supervisor Zons, Supervisor Chair McCullough, Supervisor Bauer, yes, he rode with us, Supervisor Bjork, and who am I missing? Oh, yep, Supervisor Lino, yep. Attended for a couple of days last week, and so we was going to use this opportunity in the board, in this meeting, and then as well as in my time in the board, for anybody who participated to add comment if they'd like to, or encourage participation in future conferences. It was well worth our time, I believe. Gary, do you wish to add any comment about that?
Yes. No, we encouraged Supervisor Bauer and Supervisor Bjork to, if they feel like they'd like to say a few words. I think it was really educational and well worth the time that we spent there. The governor spoke to us, the minority and majority leader of the Senate, and the minority and leader of the Assembly, and quite interesting. And then there was a presentation by a firm, Forward Analytics, that I think just the information that you can pick up. Forward Analytics was talking about the lack of growth in our population and the growth in our job requirements, and that's something that I think that going forward, all businesses, but county boards should look at too, because we're in a tough situation now, but it's probably going to get tougher. So we got to try to have some strategies, I think, going forward. And I think County Manager Corpola and the Director of the Neighbors is looking at that because of the amount of money we spend on pool help and other things. So well worth it. I think County Manager Corpola and County Chairman McCullough and myself would encourage anybody that would like to go. I think it's well worth it to take the time, and it's a learning experience. And some of the board members from different counties, and maybe some aren't, well, golly, they really are working on stuff, so it's kind of an eye opener. Thank you for that opening.
Yeah, I would definitely say it's worthwhile for any supervisor who can get the chance. In addition to the points that Gary noted, we also had both of the Supreme Court candidates speak, a panel of journalists who do a lot of political coverage, which was very interesting and useful for us in terms of how we think about messaging. And then another session that I found particularly helpful was on solving difficult problems, and difficult problems is really defined more politically difficult than, say, technically difficult.
Supervisor Zons, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
I concur with everything that was said before that. Also, it was kind of nice. The first evening they have kind of a social mixer, and have a chance to kind of informally spend time with your legislators. And I was kind of impressed that Representative Moses kind of sat down at our table and spent quite a bit of time chatting with us, and it was interesting to kind of get his perspective on stuff, and also that he seems open to listening to a lot of our ideas and suggestions, and realizes he needs to get some of the leaders out of Madison to see what's really happening out in the real world. So I really thought that portion was good, but also, like Chair McCullough said about the session about solving wicked problems. This was the was very similar to a session that they did at the conference. That was a breakout session last fall, and it was real. Even though it was very similar to that one, it was really good to hear all those ideas again. I wouldn't mind them doing that as a thing every single year, because it's really important.
All right, I think that are all of the people that attended that are present here. We did recognize, or I had gone back shortly before the conference to take a look at when was the last time that Wisconsin counties came and did the kind of roles and responsibilities of the board presentation that they typically do. And it was actually in 2017, I believe, 16 or 17. So it'd been a number of years. So we're with Chair McCullough's approval, I'm working with Sarah Diedrich Castor from WCA to come and do that probably sometime this summer. And I also would just note that Supervisor Calabrese noted in the chat after the minutes that on the second smaller minutes from February, it says minute at the top instead of minutes. And he said maybe that's because it was just one long minute. So I said it was inadvertent. And then the last item from the county manager report was leaving time for our HR director, Jenna, to speak to the county manager evaluation process.
Okay, good afternoon. So I did include a report and some drafts, and as well as the previous template for the evaluation process in the packet. So just to provide some background, the chapter 5 of the ordinance does include the stipulation that a county manager's benefits and salary shall be fixed annually in the same manner as the salaries of other non-union county employees. The other piece includes the contract that our county manager is working under, which suggests that performance is evaluated by the committee in order to proceed with salary increases. So we gather from that that there should be an annual evaluation taking place by the committee in order to move forward in including their salary for the next budget year. So that brings us here today. The board chair did request that I review the previous process and possibly make some suggestions for changes for this process. So I researched and had talked with other counties to get an idea of what other processes are out there, what's common. It did vary quite a bit from a really large scale process to that it would include the full county board and as well as, you know, stakeholders in the community. And that's more of a 360 style process that in talking with the board chair is something that we could possibly consider in the future. But just with it being kind of the first year, having a new county manager and getting an idea of what we maybe want to evaluate in the future, the recommendation is to remain with the executive committee evaluating, conducting the evaluation. The other piece that was evaluated were the competency areas as part of the evaluation form itself. So I am suggesting some changes and have proposed 8 categories of competency areas, and that includes individual characteristics, professional skills, relations with boards and committees, policy execution, reporting, community relations, staffing and supervision, as well as fiscal management. And so the thought behind this evaluation form is that you have all of those 8 areas and you would assign a rating between 1, meaning poor, through 5, meaning excellent. And you can see those defined in the report. It also allows the ability for you to add narrative comments after each section, as well as a few questions toward the end that you would be able to provide narrative comments on as well. Any questions about the competency areas specifically? What we want to make sure is that you feel like those are meaningful areas to be able to provide feedback to the county manager on. So I would welcome any comments or concerns or questions about those items.
I'll note that one of the reasons I wanted to look at those questions is that in previous years, some of the questions, well, probably relevant to the county manager's job are less relevant to many of the members of the executive committee, so they might not be able to speak to them in a particularly effective way. For example, one question was, how well does the county manager handle their interactions with the county insurance? And I'm sure that one or two people on the executive committee at the time were on top of that, but I wanted just to make sure that we, as a executive committee, were evaluating things that we were on top of, and that we got the chance to have a little bit of training on what best practices might be.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't have any concerns at all with the competencies, but I did have a question about the point that Chairman McCullough just made. There are some of the characteristics, even as broad as they are, that executive committee members may not have had an opportunity to observe or are not aware of, and there should be, I mean, you can change the rating scale to add that if it's applicable. And I am hearing some agreement on
Sure.
that.
Sure,
Thank you.
can do that.
And Mr. Chair,
Yes.
yeah, I'd like to add that I noticed there is no opportunity to observe on one thing, but on all the other ones there isn't. So that's the first thing that jumped out at me too. I can't answer some of these, so I don't want to give her average or above or below, so.
Sure. And I guess I would suggest, if there were several members of the committee that wouldn't be able to weigh in on a certain item, we could think about simply removing it as well, if you thought that would be best. Nope. Okay. I will make a note to add a not applicable option for the rating scale. Okay. And then if I may continue,
Go ahead.
the other piece of this report just includes the proposed timeline. So pending endorsement by this committee of the actual template of the format, I would plan to provide this committee with the electronic link to the form. And then I would ask that responses be submitted by March 31, so that I would have some time to be able to compile them. And then also would plan to meet with the board chair, just to kind of talk through the compiled responses and kind of formulate a presentation to the county manager at the next executive committee meeting on April 12th. And that would be provided in closed session. I believe in the past, there had been a point in time where the committee asked the county manager to leave and then discuss. I think that could still be on the table, but the hope would be in maybe having some preparation done with the board chair in advance of that we would be able to just simply provide the report to the manager in closed session without delay, but of course, pending anyone's thoughts on the day of. Any questions or concerns about the timeline?
Executive board, any questions about it or not? I think it sounds reasonable.
Okay.
And I think it's Chairman McCullough, it's an effort to try to update our approach, I think. And I'm in favor of it. So anything else?
I will say, it will be my first go at it, so I'm welcoming feedback all along and happy to make changes for next year as well. So
May I?
thanks for your time.
Weigh
Yeah,
in?
yeah, yes.
I will not board the committee members with this, but after 35 years of doing survey research, I have some comments that I've noted about the questions, and I won't bore anybody, but generally speaking, the items often ask for opinions on two sometimes related and sometimes unrelated things. And it helps to ask for one as opposed to several.
Okay. If you,
Composure and attitude would be the first example that pops to my. I'll just, and
Okay.
I'll just share these with you,
sure,
so nobody else has to listen to me talk.
sounds good.
I have one question that could direct at Kelly or Jenna. Kelly, would there be, or Mr. Chairman, would there be a time when the board as a whole could weigh in some form?
So we haven't done that in the past. And I'm not sure with this time around if that's going to be the best shot, but one of the things Jen and I had discussed was possibly doing a more 360 style evaluation for the second go round. I am, and if everybody else disagrees, that's fine by me, but I'm kind of reluctant to turn it into a full board review simply because that's pretty unwieldy. I could easily see that requiring its own special meeting and taking up a pretty huge chunk of time. But if that's the way people want to go, I'm certainly open to that. I felt that with about half of the executive committee having turned over, new chair, new county manager, new HR director, we had a good opportunity to look at the process and see whether we were happy with it or whether we wanted to make some adjustments.
Yeah, and I'm not advocating a full board review, other than the fact, I guess I would be interested in as the board, what do you think? Or do you think they're doing a good job? You don't think they're doing a good job? I'd be interested in the opinion of the board generally, not specifically, Mr. Supervisor Rogers.
I guess I would maybe look at the possibility of having the members of the full board do the questionnaire, but not necessarily voice the opinion. But that, I don't know about that. I guess I just kind of spitballing.
I appreciate your comment, and Supervisor Morehouse, I know I'm causing you great consternation by bringing that up, and I apologize. But I should bow to your expertise. Jenna, anything else?
Nothing else from me, other,
Supervisor Kinnear?
So is it my understanding then that if with this process, if the executive committee said this, and this is the raise and so forth, it doesn't have to go to the full board to say yes or no?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Jenna? Does Jenna have any more stuff to overwhelm us with?
I would ask if following feedback from Supervisor Morehouse, if you would like another review, or if the committee would be agreeable to me making the changes and sending the link out at that point in time.
Supervisor Morehouse?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would be perfectly happy with you making the changes. It's not significant. And I don't think anybody has any criticisms about the sort of competency areas. It's style, probably.
Thank you.
Hearing no more questions, thank you, Jenna, very much. We're looking forward to moving ahead in a educated manner.
And then I have one last thing. Beata is going to provide a moment's clarification on her PowerPoint from last month. There were questions about the interest rates, and she has gotten information about that and is going to clarify that. So Beata, do you want to come up? And I will share my screen.
All kind, we all want you.
Yeah, did you intend to go through the whole thing or just the slide 6 that you added? So if you recall last month, Beata walked you through at the county board meeting this graph that showed kind of our decreasing debt amounts with a relatively sharp fall off after 2025. And then kind of where those were, and this is what led to some of those questions then about the interest rates where they were a range. And so then she put together this, if I can make it a tiny bit bigger for you.
Yes,
That's-
please. And of course, we'll share this so that you have it. Because, you know, you don't have the bifocals like I do, you know. Zooming in here. So I just kind of, I brought an example of what this looks like. So when we were looking at coupon and yields and price and want to just kind of go through and say, what does this all mean? So the question came last time about the interest rates. As you see, some of the interest rates, they're not as a fixed rate as opposed to you would go get a car loan. You're giving a one rate and you're sticking with this rate for until you're done paying it off. So here, as you see, there is first year is 3, then it's goes to 4, and you know, so it kind of goes and fluctuates. So I brought in this example and just kind of provided some definitions. But at a high level, coupon rates, think of it as
Hold on,
an
just hold on a
interest
second.
rate.
Give me 2 seconds.
Mhm.
Yeah, just to make this littler so they can see it.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, they can just focus on the snippet and I can go through the
Oh, sorry.
definitions. No, that's okay.
Okay.
Right. So the coupon rate is very much what we know or familiar with as the interest rate. Right, so that is the interest rate that we pay to the bond holders. Now, these interest rate by year are not the same, they're a little bit different, and that is determined based on the bids that go through the banks, and there's a process that we go through. So they propose, these are the rates that we're proposing. And if then we accept the bid, then we are committed to those rates. Okay, so again, it's not one rate, 3% till it all matures. I just want to, clarify that because that's one of the questions that came up is, does it fluctuate? So in this sense, it does, but it's locked in, okay? So the coupon rate will remain fixed until all this.
So Beata, can
That's
I
right.
just ask a clarification? So the idea would be each year the rate is locked, but it changes from year to year, but we know
Right.
that at the time that the bid is accepted.
That's correct. Okay,
I see
so
Mike's supervisor Rogers,
So
confusion.
when we get the proposal or that you bring to the county board and we approve a bond, it's that 3% that we did last year or the year before. That's not locked in then, it's just locked in for a year. And then it can change the next year.
no, because the market can change. But because of when the bonds were issued, it is at that rate till it matures.
So where's the fluctuation you're talking about? You said it can
Okay,
fluctuate
so
from one
like
year
you
to the
say
next.
coupon, like you see coupon for 2023, it's 3%. Then you get down to coupon for 2027 is 4%. That's what I was referring to.
So the
And-
same debt service is broken out by year? Is that the
Right.
fair amount to say? And the rates vary by year, but we know that at the front end.
Right.
So it's not changing unknown to us. It's just that in accepting the bid, we know that in 2023, the rate's going to be 3%. And in 2026, it's going to be 3.5. And 2027, it's going to be 4, and then it's going to drop back down. But we
Right.
know that going in, but it changes by the year. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
Supervisor Kinnear?
So this example is of one bond sold at one time.
Yes, this is the
Okay.
most recent one that we did when we issued debt for $3 million.
Supervisor Headland?
And if I understand this right, what I think I do. When we issued the debt, these bonds during the length of the total time of the debt are part of the total debt, and that's the way they're sold. So when you are buying this debt, you might want to buy something that is for 5 years and then I'm out. I don't want to go any longer than that. And the next bank says, I'm looking for some long-term 8 to 10 year stuff. And they bid on that.
Right.
And this is a result of those sales of those individual amounts based on the maturity as we're paying it off. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So when we went out to issue debt, our investment, I say bankers, investor Baker Tilly was working with banks to get a bid. So bank come with the lowest rates, and that's what we went with at that time. Because I looked at the issuance, the whole agreement, the whole document. So that's how it was. Buck Bank was the lowest.
Supervisor Rogers.
So an example, the last resolution we had a year ago when we borrowed $3 million or we put it out for bids to get a price. And when that came forward, then it was at this interest rate is what we're paying for the next 20 years or 15 years on that loan that we had just taken out. Where does are you averaging the rates over this, the 2, the 3, the 4, you averaging them out and then bringing them back to us at when we do the resolution to approve the $3 million borrowing, or how do we come up with the interest rate that you're presenting to us at for that borrowing?
Right. So bond issuance is not very much the same as you would go take a loan. Okay, so you issuing a bonds for investors to, so that's really the difference. I hope
This is our
that.
savings, not our-
No, I see what you, but I think what you're asking Supervisor Rogers is when the resolution comes forward for approval, it says we're going to borrow $3 million at 3.24%. Maybe something like that. Where does that 3.24% come from? Is it an average of all of the maturities? Or
Right.
is it the first year? Like, what is it? What is that?
It's at
reflective?
that time, I was just averaging, because it's, as you see here demonstrated, it's 1 year's 3, then it goes 4, then it goes 3. So, but that's, we can refinance when that percentage gets a little higher. And I think that was the case in previous debt that we had.
Beata, if I might interject here, in my experience, as village president, we would, make a loan. And then we'd look at the interest rates and whatever it was, if we saw opportunity to save money, we'd refinance. The same thing that's what the county's going to do. They borrowed the money at this particular time, at this particular rate. That's what's happening now. But they're gonna, every year, they're gonna review, and when it gets to be an opportunity for us to save money, and on occasion, you can save a lot of money. Am I explaining this correctly?
Yeah. So I'll caution too, because if we call these bonds, there are I don't want to call them penalties, but here as in from the investor side of point, we are issuing a bond to investor. Let's just say the bond is at a par value of $1,000. And I'm going to say you hold on to this bond for 10 years. And every year I'm going to pay, the first year I'm going to pay you 3%. The second year I'm going to pay you 3, the third 3, and then it goes to 3.5 and so on. So that's going to be the interest I'm going to be paying you as an investor on that $1,000 par bond that you have in your pocket. Okay,
But here's my question.
but then,
Maybe I'm not understanding it, but when you refinance, you're taking what you owe and you're paying that off and you're
Yeah.
borrowing another. So therefore,
yes,
that investor gets the money that he's supposed to get.
yeah, but then,
So then you're making another loan or borrowing more money at a different rate, and hopefully, not hopefully, but you wouldn't be doing that unless you'd be saving money. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, correct. But
Yeah.
what I was trying to explain is that you as an investor, I gave you this interest for until it matures. But now county says, well, you know what? I'm gonna take this bond, I'm gonna call it earlier than what I said it's gonna mature. So there are consequences for doing that. You want to call if the market is in our favor.
I understand
Okay.
that. But you wouldn't refinance unless it didn't make sense.
That's right, unless
So
it's
I-
in our
Yeah,
favor.
the point I'm trying to make for the whole board is that while we do this, it doesn't mean we're locked in forever. We review that every year, every 2 years, every 3 years. And a chance at the amount of money that we borrow, you can have some substantial savings.
Right.
You know, if the interest rate is
Right.
drops in your favor.
Yes, it's an option, but of course, that option we want to act on if it's of course in our favor. It's not to lose money. Right.
Supervisor Kinnear?
So were you saying that if we did call the bond, maybe you'd be paying more than that 3%?
Well, I really can't answer that now because I don't know what that is, but it's a possibility. Or it could be in our favor.
Okay, yeah, and that would be considered if we're doing what
Right.
Gary said, yeah.
Well,
But I was just looking at, you called it, you didn't want to call it a penalty, but sometimes it kind of is,
Yeah.
if you call it early.
well, if I might interject, whoever we have, Baker Tilly, or if it's Ellers.
Right, we can bring him into the table.
You know, whoever we have, Ellers and Associates, Baker Tilly, they figure all that in there. So they're not gonna tell you to refinance unless it makes sense for you. So they,
Right.
you know, we're not smart enough to figure that out, but we hire guys that are. And so, am I correct?
Right.
Yeah. Or women too, I mean,
Right.
yeah.
Because in this case, what this also says, if you look at the coupon rate. Let's just say today, the market interest rates are higher. That doesn't mean this rate is going to go higher. Even though in 29 is 4%. We are locked in there, okay?
Mhm.
So the market can change, the interest rates can change. But as long as, those rates are set at the time that the bonds are issued.
If I
Okay.
might, I think to Supervisor Rogers' point, the number that we're talking about is essentially the interest rate, the effective interest rate over the life of the loan is, whatever percent is presented to the county board for approval. Now, it may vary from year to year to year, but that variability is locked in at the beginning and does not float with the market. So it's variable in terms of we have agreed to pay this much this year, this much this year, this much this year, but we are getting that whole sheet locked in at the beginning, and that single number is the effective rate over the life of the loan. I think I'm getting that correctly.
Right.
Thank you, Kelly. That explained what I was trying to ask and what I was trying to get at. And
Yeah, that's what I
ultimately,
thought.
it's not about refinancing or getting a better interest rate. It's about when we present this to approve a loan for $3 million, we're saying we're getting it at this rate.
Yeah.
I don't care if within that 20 years, you have different percentages on different bonds at different rates, but we know at the end of 20 years, we paid this much interest on this loan.
Mhm.
And
Right.
when we were at the meeting and we're seeing interest rates that fluctuate on the graph, that really raised a red flag for me, because why do we have fluctuating interest rates when we already were told that we're set on what we're gonna pay?
And here you can see, here's the slide, I think that triggered that.
Right,
Um,
interest rate.
this split here.
Yeah, basically how I summarize is from the lowest to the highest, because obviously I didn't have enough room to have all 10 years in there. So that was just my summary, and I thought there would be a lot of value bringing you an example of our most recent, what that looks like.
So in that case, you would have put a split of between 3% and 4%.
Yet,
I know, I've been, yeah. But no, this is excellent question. And one thing I added a note here that once we go with this coupon rate, we're committed, it's not going to change. So even if there's a change in interest rates, and because of the economy and the banking industry, that will have no effect on what we here issued bonds for.
If I might interject there, Beata, this is the board's attempt to educate everybody on the board on what we're doing here. Like when you talk to Beata, this is like asking your mom how to make cookies. She's right on. She knows how to do it. We don't know nothing about it. And so we're trying to get educated, and I think valuable questions that you had there, Mike. And so a better understanding of, for instance, yeah, this is what we mean, like when we had brought to the board meeting. And I appreciate the fact that Beata is doing this and Kelly is trying to educate the board, even a Norwegian
Likewise.
like myself. Thank you, Beata.
Yes, you're very welcome. Anyone has any questions on the other ones? The other ones are really yields. This is what our investors are looking at. So yield, this is yield to maturity. What that is an income. The yield to maturity of a bond is the interest rate of the bond, which that is the additional income that the investor can make based on how the market is doing. So basically that when the rates go down, the price of the bond will increase. So, and that's what investors want. So the reason that it's sitting there is for letting you know what those yields. And those are not necessarily locked because market will fluctuate. But for us, money out the door that we have a liability for is really that coupon rate.
Any questions for Beata? And I appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to walk us through this. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yes, not a problem.
Yeah.
I'll be more welcome to bring in an examples, using, dollars to put more different perspective. I originally had it on here and I removed it because I thought I would overwhelm you. But I was just trying to put it in as a bond at a par value of 1,000. What does that look like for us and what does that look like for an investor? I'd be more than happy to bring that forward if you feel that would add value.
I guess we'll
No.
let you know.
Okay, thank you very much.
I think Beata, if you can make this Norwegian understand, then everybody on the board will get it. So you got a tough job to make me understand, but
Yes,
that's,
but
you gotta get it
Chris
down.
Corpola she always reminds me, remember, you gotta break it down. You
Yeah.
can't complicate things. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the feedback. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next door, do you have anything? County manager?
Oh, no, I don't.
Okay, next order of business is number 6, reports, resolution ordinance of the county board from the executive committee. 6A, resolution 2023 budget adjustments and 2022 carry forwards. Is this, you want to speak to that or not?
Sure. These are fairly standard. They come to the board every year in March. These are generally, they come from a couple of different ways. They're either grants or donations which were unspent in the previous year, or equipment purchases that were committed for but haven't been able to be accomplished. And there's been a fair amount of that with supply chain and et cetera. So for instance, when you saw the sheriff's department purchase a transport vehicle recently, they had been searching for a vehicle for 2 years for that purchase. So those monies would then get carried forward. And then the other piece of it is sometimes there are grants which cross years. They're on the state fiscal calendar, which is July 1st to June 30th, or the federal fiscal calendar, which is October 1st to September 30th. And we need to, might not know the dollar amounts or whatever. There's reasons to carry forward those monies when that's clear in the new year. So, but they're fairly straightforward. I mean, you might have questions about any particular carry forward request. And then the budget adjustments that are on the bottom of that are generally related to those carry forwards. So when the departments presented, so for instance, I'm gonna just take a simple example. Department of Human Services presented a budget in October that was approved in November that had a $500 donation, say for something, I don't know, whatever. And so that money was not included. I'm sorry. If in the previous year they had that $500 donation, that money wasn't included in the 2023 budget because they thought they were going to spend it. If it wasn't spent and it's carried forward, now we need to adjust the 2023 budget to take into account those carried forward funds.
Any questions? Karen, do we need a motion on that, Nick? I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll move approval.
Is there a second? Supervisor Headland, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second, those opposed, same sign, motion carried. 6B, resolution 2023 budget adjustment, Health Department, Department of Human Services and Land Information. Would you like to talk to that or should I have KT talk to that?
These are actually, again, just, these are some of the more regular budget adjustments that you see as come to you monthly as grant amounts are finalized for the year, or if there were monies received at the end of the year that weren't included in the budget and now are available for the next year. These are fairly standard budget adjustments. I would note there is a typo in the budget adjustment under the health department. It doesn't affect the dollar amount at all. It's an account number that should be you can see it. It's fairly obvious once you see it, but it's like looking at those little puzzles which tell you to find the number. That's wonky. I circled it. Where did I go with it? Oh, I'm not far enough yet. It is under the contractual consulting line. On the health department, it should be a 15100 instead of a 12100. It's just an account number. It makes no difference with regard to the actual dollar amount of the carry forward, but I will correct it for the board meeting.
I would entertain a motion to approve. Supervisor Rogers moves. Is there a second? Supervisor Quinn. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. 6C, resolution approving 2022 opioid settlement agreements. Speaking to that, Nick.
For those of you who didn't get a chance to read my 100-page report, in essence, so in 2017, Dunn County joined every county in the state except for Polk County to file claims because of opioid issues. There was a settlement that came in late 2021. That's been handled and money has been coming in now for close to a year, I think, on that. There are a number of firms, distributors and pharmaceuticals that are in bankruptcy right now, and they're still ironing that out. But most recently, we have 5 new distributors, pharmacies that are settling. And Teva, Allergan, CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart. I put the pay structure chapter in the report. And this isn't Dunn County's, these aren't Dunn County numbers. There are literally thousands and thousands of state and local governments with health departments that have joined in this lawsuit, and there are some that are kind of outliers that are held in different states, but the vast majority of these cases have been consolidated into a federal court in Ohio. It's called multi-district litigation, and they handle, because of the uniformity of claims among all the different plaintiffs, it just makes more sense to have all the initial things handled by one court and one judge, so that expert witnesses, depositions, and all of that stuff can be coordinated. Well, they've been working a lot on settlement. So settlement has come again with these 5 new defendants. At a high level, the Wisconsin total is $321.4 billion. I'm gonna round up. Local governments will be entitled to receive, and I should say that's an estimate. Local governments will be entitled to receive 70% of that, whatever amount it ends up being. The state gets 30%. There are, as you know from past, from the previous settlement, the proceeds from settlement have to be used for specific abatement activities and programs. And there's a pretty wide range of, good uses that can be made of it. I know that in the Human Services Department, Paul has been working on facilitating that. They can be as simple as, getting each deputy an extra pen to deal with a overdose situation, to all the way to programming, and, direct services for addicts. There's just a wide range of them. So we've come to a point where we have to, Dunn County has to, by April 18th, the day before your next meeting, or next county board meeting, or the April county board meeting, has to commit to either participate in the settlement or go it alone. And I'm begging you. It requires approval. The county board chair in the past has been the signatory on documents. I've been the contact person, and so I guess most recently, one of the things moved to an electronic document that you sign online. And so it's set up for my signature, but otherwise, if the county board decides to participate in this settlement, we'll need to get some stuff signed and sent back to our legal counsel. Within I'm shooting for like the few days after the county board meeting. But it's definitely regarded as the best deal that can be gotten. These attorneys are taking this very seriously. There've been very intense discussions. The settlements are all subject to oversight and involvement with the federal court, the judge. There's a settlement panel and specialists that are appointed by the courts to help facilitate settlement and try to get the best deal for the plaintiffs. And so I don't know if anybody has questions, I can answer them. I'll try to, but I included as much information as I could. If you're interested in the actual settlement agreements, and I think one of them is like 664 pages long, one of the 5. Some of them are longer, some of them are shorter. I'll make sure that there are links on in the meeting calendar. And if you want to peruse it, you may, but the salient terms of settlement are distribution of funds. There are some provisions in there that, as with the last settlement, these defendants have to change the way they do business. There are, orders prohibiting them, there'll be orders prohibiting them from doing certain things or requiring them to do certain things to help mitigate the opioid epidemic, and they're, they contest the allegations, but their involvement and participation in it.
Does anybody have around 100-page question for Nick? If not, we appreciate your hard work. I would entertain a resolution to approve.
I recommend you agree to this.
Tom Quinn, it moved. And Mike Kinnear seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next order of business is 6D, an ordinance amending chapter 2 of the Dunn County Code of Ordinance Rules of the Board. Would you like to speak to that, supervisor, or not supervisor, but county manager Corpola?
I would defer to,
Corp Counsel?
Oh, let me find it here. That's a rezone. Yes, the county board chair asked me to look into revising the rules regarding electronic participation in meetings. Our current rule allows, I think, maybe two meetings per year. The opioid, I got that on my mind now. The COVID pandemic really forced particularly government to upgrade its electronic capabilities for meetings. And we have very reliable internet connections now. We have reliable devices that we can use if we're not able to attend in person. And it has been a very common occurrence that we've had members participating electronically. And so it was time to revisit, the language of the rules. So what I did is I drafted a rule. There may be some aspects of it that you'd like me to cut. But I tried to include everything that I thought would make it a helpful rule and not to be used as a sword for somebody who wanted to use a rule to obstruct the work getting done or whatever. And not that I would suspect anyone would do that, but and then the other aspect of it is just to freshen up or update the Community Resources and Tourism Committee description. So we've added in there that it is now responsible for developing and recommending policy to the Board of Supervisors relating to broadband infrastructure, and then developing policy and direction in regard to Dunn County public relations communications. So there are two different aspects contained within the one ordinance.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions for Corp Counsel?
May I just, may-
Supervisor Moore.
may I say that I was really impressed. I had never read the term synchronous digital telecommunication platform. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I was gonna ask IT to chime in and tell me if that's the correct description or not, but I read it somewhere else and
I believe we need a motion
yes.
and a second. Do I have a motion?
I'll move approval, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Morehouse moves. Is there a second? Supervisor Rogers, any other discussion? Hearing none. Supervisor McCullough, Chairman McCullough,
I actually let John go first and then I will jump in.
Supervisor Calabrese.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think this is ironic for me to say since I'm zooming in right now, but if there could be something in the orientation for new supervisors, sort of stressing the importance and benefits of meeting in person, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, I
Thank
think
you,
that sounds like Okay, I was gonna say, I think that sounds like a great idea. I don't think it needs to go in the ordinance. I just wanted to mention my impetus for these two things. Under Jim Zahn's and previously under Supervisor Anderson's lead, community resources and tourism have really stepped up on communications and broadband. And I thought it was important that we give both of those some place to live so that there was a committee that was responsible for them. That's one of the reasons why I was suggesting that. And then in terms of the meetings, I felt that we have demonstrated over the last couple of years how valuable electronic meetings could be, and it was important to get our actual rules in line with practice.
Thank you, Chairman McCullough. We have a motion and a second, I believe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next order of business, a resolution proclaiming National County Government Month, April 2023. I would entertain a motion. Supervisor Headland, is there a second? Supervisor Prochnow, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Number 7, review of reports, resolutions, and ordinance coming to the county boards from the standing committees. 7A, Planning Resource and Development Committee. A1, rezone ordinance for WILARL Enterprises LLC in the town of Menominee.
I mean, move it, should I move it first and then we can talk
Yeah,
about it?
I
You're
think we
just
should.
reporting.
What?
You're just reporting committee.
Which
activity.
reporting? Okay, send this all report. So it's just, yeah, that's right. This is a rezone request in the town of Menominee out by. I saw just by Highway 12 out there where Dean and Suze are, the previously Italian restaurant that was out there. Darn it, now it's gone. But
Place.
is requesting, it was never rezoned for commercial, even though it was used for that purpose. So they have a new buyer, the United Way of Menominee is planning on buying it, and the owner would like to rezone it to commercial, which the town and the committee agree with.
Thank you. Do we need any action on this, Nick? No. All right. Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Next order of business is 7B, Land Conservation Committee resolution authorizing application for a targeted runoff management grant. Supervisor Quinn.
Well, I will ask Chase to make him, while he's coming up, I gotta say that this has been a knotty issue for the county, and Chase has done a remarkable job of figuring out how to come up with a bunch of money to take care of a difficult problem.
And I'm gonna rain on that parade right now. Because so this particular grant application, we've received, we've talked about these in the past with full county board approval to apply for these types of grants to assist farms in meeting the performance standards set by the state and the county's ordinance. In this particular situation, it's all on a timing thing with the grant schedule. We need to get through committee to get to this stage for exec and to county board to meet the deadlines for when the grant application is to be submitted. In doing so, through our discovery phase and gathering the information, it's been determined that the farm is not eligible for this particular grant. And that's something that we did not know going into this based on some circumstances that we've since discovered. So while it is a very good source of funds and we have pursued those in the past, this particular source of funds, it has some very strict guidelines on it. So we are going to look at pursuing some other sources of funding to assist this farm in its compliance. And those sources do not necessarily require county board approval. So we're going to pursue those, but I agree with Supervisor Quinn that these are knotty issues, and trying to navigate the grant realm and the timing of all this stuff
Just
and
love
getting all that information.
Doing
it
my
makes it
county board
difficult,
meeting
so.
in my ear while I'm setting up.
Thank you.
So this does not need to be on the agenda.
Do you want to, what would be the correct thing? Withdraw it or nothing? No action taken?
With the county manager will just, it won't be included as an item, action item for the board.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
7C Highway Resolution designated April 17th through the 21st, 2023 is Work Zone Awareness Week. Highway Chair, would you like to address that? Yeah.
Do this every year.
Yeah.
It's just something we do every year for work safety for the highway. Same time every year, so.
I would entertain a motion. We don't need one?
No, this is all reporting now.
All right,
So this is already, action has already been taken by the highway committee.
there we go. 7D Committee on Administration Resolution to participate in the WISC Fund. Supervisor Headland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, this is some of our county manager referred to in her information. It's a fund that is out there. It's in Wisconsin, and it is made up of communities and counties that wish to work together to find better rates for money that they have to invest. And so we have to join them via a resolution that they require us to have the board approval before we can join in with the rest.
Thank you. Do we need a resolution?
No.
Just a report like you told me 4 times. Okay, I got it. All right, moving along, number 8, and thank you Supervisor Headland. Reports from the standing committees. Supervisor Morehouse.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Health and Human Services Board met on February 23rd, and then we had a short online meeting on March 1st to approve a carry forward that just didn't get on the agenda. We had our regular reports from all 3 divisions. Veterans Service Office is really busy dealing with the PACT Act. As you know, that's the burn pit federal legislation. The phones are ringing off the hook because a lot of both disease processes and veterans are eligible for retroactive benefits. Greg Quinn was particularly complimentary about County Manager Corpola arranging for Doug Mell to work with them to issue a press release to make sure that veterans in the area are really aware that additional funds might be available to them, and their new part-time staff person is to help because the phones are kind of ringing off the hook, which is great for veterans. KT Gallagher reported on a variety of things, including apparently controversial DHS administrative rule on vaccination and vaccination frequency. So that's at issue. She's going to be discontinuing for the committee her updates on both influenza and COVID because the rates are both low and stable. So we will do that. Financially, public health looks to have a slight deficit in their 2022 budget. We heard, we actually had a quite long and interesting discussion with Jessica Lindstrom, who's the manager of economic support in the Department of Human Services, to talk about the expiration of the emergency allocation in food share benefits that took place on March 1st. And changes from the from COVID policies on healthcare benefits as well. It's hard to figure out what the economic impact of this is going to be on individuals. It's hard because families all are different. There's no sort of standard family. But Jessica did tell us that in December, $500,000, a little over $500,000 in the emergency allocation came into Dunn County. So that's gone now. So that's $500,000 every month in reduced benefits. The other thing that will be happening to clients is that during the 3 years of the pandemic, people have not had to qualify for income, have not had to reapply for healthcare benefits and so on. I mean, there has been no paperwork. There now will be paperwork. The Great Rivers Consortium on healthcare alone is anticipating something like 5,000 additional healthcare renewals to be submitted every month. And so the workload is going to be significant. Nobody's had to renew for the last 3 years, and they haven't had to provide any kind of documentation. Now they have to renew and they have to provide documentation. So did I do that right? Okay. DHS is pretty close, and it's hard in DHS to finalize the budgets, but they're pretty close to finalizing the budget. And while we are not going to be returning as much money as we had hoped, we are returning about $300,000, and that's good. We think that's good. We reviewed our vouchers, approved these carry forwards and budget adjustments, and our next meeting is March 23rd. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Morrow. Supervisor Quinn?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the PRD committee has been meeting twice a month, although we are going to be canceling our next meeting because we don't have enough items to make it worthwhile. We have been dealing with standard business, maybe some of the shorter meetings we've had over the years, but we've reviewed the reports from the departments, and we've also reviewed the progress on the updates from the groundwater task force that concluded. We continue to work on just to basically moving forward on the review of the comprehensive plan, and continue to have discussions about the potential need to revise the ordinance for commercial zoning. And that is something that staff is working on, and the committee will be reviewing a draft at our next meeting probably. That's about it.
Thank you, Supervisor Quinn. Supervisor Dunn?
Sorry, I had to click my mic to turn myself on here. And since I'm talking, I'll turn on my video too. So for those who were not lucky enough to attend the last CRNT committee meeting, it was actually held on Valentine's Day. And I think we probably set a record for the longest CRNT committee meeting ever held. And we had just a plethora of things that we were talking about. We got a very long extended update from UW Extension, mostly about some changes to the agriculture educator position. For those who aren't aware, that used to be a position that was done, was on a county by county basis, and they are no longer really able to fulfill all of those positions. So they're looking at setting that up more regionally and with experts on specific areas. So we had a lot of discussion about that particular change. We also had a great discussion with their broadband education outreach specialists about creating task force and setting that up so that there's a way to address broadband on a basis more than just like a subcommittee of the county board, but bringing in other stakeholders. And that was a real worthwhile discussion to have. Our next meeting will be this coming Tuesday in person there in the room that the rest of you are sitting in that I'm not in. So sorry I couldn't be there. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Zans. Supervisor Calabrese?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let's see here. The Judiciary and Law Committee met last Monday, and hold on a second, I have my notes here. Here we go. Sarah Benedict with the Criminal Justice Collaboration Committee spoke about putting together a 5-minute video, informational video about the constitutional amendment change, the Wisconsin Constitution that's going to be on the ballot in November about bail bonds. And they're putting that together with the CJCC. And she also spoke about putting together a presentation for the full board next Wednesday, which we can all look forward to hear about the great work that they're doing there. Supervisor Luke Wilsey did a long tour of the county jail a couple weeks ago. And so in the sheriff's report, they discussed that a lot. Supervisor Wilsey talked about some observations he had during the tour, and the sheriff elaborated on some of the topics, including word from a lot of the people who work at the jail about needing a mental health facility in the area. And the sheriff elaborated on what has to happen when they do have mental health cases, and the struggles that they're facing because of that. And they talked about the food service and all sorts of other things. It was very interesting, and it made me want to do my own tour of the jail. And sheriff also reported that after release of a probationary deputy last week, they now have 5 vacant patrol positions. And those are the highlights of the meeting. We are meeting next on March 27th. And as Mr. Zahn says, in a room that I'm not sitting in. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor Calabrese. Supervisor Rogers?
Facilities met on February 22nd. As far as the transit station, we are still waiting for additional legal review on that. Probably coming in the near future. And we are tabling the parks until later, till we get a little bit more legal review on that. The committee has requested the facilities department do some research on the cost estimates for both solar and geothermal, with hopes that we can bring that forward to the capital improvements meeting in March for the county. Beginning some real in-depth look at the cost of solar. In the past, we did a lot of research on it, and this company out of Iowa was kind of working with us to try to come in and set up solar panels, and then we'd buy it from them and we'd get a little kickback or a little discount. That really probably isn't going to work because of the laws regarding someone else building them, and then they have to fall under a different category. So we're beginning to move forward with some options as far as what it would cost for the county to move forward with some solar and some geothermal. Both have come a long way and are becoming cost effective. The payback may not be quite as good for a county facility because we don't get all of the income rebates on your income taxes. However, it doesn't mean that it's not a viable option, both from a cost standpoint where it'll pay for itself in 10 to 15 years instead of 8 to 12 years. And now we're still working on a 30-year lifespan of that solar panel. So the numbers do add up that we're now, what I put out there, I guess, is kind of preliminary numbers. We're waiting for more concrete before we present actual numbers from that perspective. The geothermal has certainly been very cost effective for what we've gotten out of it and the life expectancy for a geothermal system. The facilities department has, one of the carry forwards that was brought in is they're still working to replace a lot of the controls in the what building is it? No, not the neighbors, the courthouse. Judicial center. A lot of them controls on the heating equipment need to be replaced, but they're kind of holding off to evaluate controls that could be used for geothermal in addition to that, so that we wouldn't have to replace them again if we did move on to geothermal in the future. So they're really doing a good job of looking to the future with what they're doing for spending money. I'd like to compliment them on how they're doing that and what they're trying to save us money at the same time as getting the job done. And from there, we're gonna have a meeting in March, and that's all I got.
Thank you, Supervisor Rogers. Supervisor Headland?
Thank you. The community administration met last month on the 23rd. Here, I attended it via Zoom myself, because at about 2:15, I finally came in from outside, both sweaty, wet, and cold. Or whatever it was, and I decided that I was not going to rush to try to get here. At that point, my driveway was open until it was plowed shut again. So I just gave up. Sorry. On top of that, what we did do is we heard again from all the committees, Department of Administration with the reports on what they are doing and how their budgets are matching up, and they're doing quite well. Along with that, the information we are going to be brought forward earlier, like I mentioned, as far as that WESC investment account. We discussed that and decided to move it forward. Along with that, we heard from IT, and then you all have again now with hopefully been requested to start your IT training. And that should have came through. If you haven't noticed it, look through your emails and see that there is a training session that has been developed for all of us. Along with, and then our next meeting of that committee will be coming up here on the 23rd of this month at 3 o'clock. Along with those, as part, I also serve on the WESCAP Board of Directors, along with their finance department, and on the Dunn County Housing Authority, which are basically tied together in that the Dunn County Housing Authority hires a person from WESCAP, Tammy July Lever, who is our director. And so I sat on their board as a county representative, but also in kind of a double faceted thing, because we match up back and forth, basically with their things that they do for people in the 9-county area and the things that our housing authority does. Our housing authority had quite a drop off in numbers in terms of what we call Section 8. And the Section 8 is the vouchers that people receive to receive supplemental rental payments where they live. It's an income-based program. But it's coming back. Tammy is very aggressive in holding meetings with people who apply or ask to apply and getting those people vouchers that qualify. So those numbers are coming back. The WESCAP, as with most entities, are suffering from staffing issues. They get some staff and they lose some staff. And one of the things that is affected for them is in talking with some of the previous, or hearing some of the previous issues, is that some of these programs have changed. Some are ending, some are changing, some are requiring people to contact them again if they still feel they qualify. And so they are having a tremendously difficult time just keeping up with phone calls. Everybody that's there, if they got any time, they switch over and help out on the switchboard, so to speak, and answer phone calls that are coming in. And So that is a report from both West Cap also and the Housing Authority. Thank you.
Supervisor Prochnow.
Thank you. Highway met this morning. Beside the basic, we're filling potholes and plowing roads. The main news, I guess, is we decided to get rid of the crushing equipment for the highway. Basically, we can get it done just about the same price as it was costing us, so we decided to sell that. Auction took place. We got everything sold for more money than we're expecting, so now we can take some of that money, hopefully we can put into the equipment that we use all the time. The crushing equipment was used it once every other year, so we're trying to simplify a few things, get rid of stuff we don't use all the time, get stuff we need. Basically, we're working on County Road B and Z. We're getting the DNR permitting for that. County Road B project, obviously, I think you guys know this. 1229 to Packard Drive has been put off for a year. Doing a lot of work on that right now as far as relocating all the utility stuff. Did the boring for the Packard Drive up to County Road Double B. Getting that done so we can actually replace that this year, which I think is probably more important right now, the way that road is driving. It's actually worse there than the south part right now. So it might work out good. Reviewing all the equipment. We got some equipment that's been sitting around that we can't use anymore. We're gonna see if we can get rid of some of that stuff. Seasonal weight limits will be going on tomorrow. So they'll be going on. We're working on Q and W design. Need to purchase a little bit of road right away to make that corner and stuff up there. We are gonna go with the herbicide spraying again this summer for the ditches. Maybe not spray quite as far out, but to control all the noxious weeds and do a growth inhibitor in there, so we don't have to mow as much, and it's a lot more efficient to do it that way. I think that's really all I had.
Thank you, Supervisor Prochnow. Supervisor Kinnear.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, anybody listening to this meeting sure gets a little snapshot of what the county does, especially with your departments. Reporting for the neighbors, we met February 23rd. At that time, we were still looking for a chief clinical mentor, and we still are. That would be the chief nurse of all 3 buildings. We're working on getting a training program for certified nursing assistants. We've been working on that for some time. It's right now, it's mostly looking for the physical place to put it. Another hoop to go through, I guess, or for the state. And somebody mentioned flu and COVID earlier. There, as of our last meeting, there had been no flu amongst the residents at all. Still the case. I keep getting the good nods back there. And COVID only in staff that we know of anyway. Those are all interesting things. Then the budget, in January, we looked at the budget, and in January for 2022, we looked at about a $700,000 deficit. And when we looked at it again in February, it's about 1.2 for 2022. It went up a great deal. So something to consider. I know we gave back 1.2 last year, but that was really COVID money. And so we have about 1.2, and close enough. And we meet again at the end of the month. So that's about it.
Thank you, Supervisor Kinnear. I might add to go along with Supervisor Calabrese's report that Supervisor Headland and myself will be interviewing for sheriff deputies on the 20th of the week of the 20th there. So thought I'd mention that. Our next meeting date is April 12th, 2023 at 3:30. I do not know at this time if we would entertain a legislative meeting or not. That will be decided. So any other business that anybody has? If not, I think we've concluded our business. We are adjourned.